This review has been approved by Gengar. He's a ghost. Hey guys, welcome to Peripheral Vision, and today we're taking a look at the Competition Pro for the Nintendo Entertainment System by Hap Controls Incorporated. And yes, as you're probably thinking, it does look like a Sega Genesis controller, but it's not. You can tell by the connector. That is definitely an NES connector. But it does have all of the characteristics of one of the Genesis controllers. It's big, black, and boomerang shaped, so maybe this came at the end of Nintendo's NES life cycle, and it was actually directly copying the Genesis control scheme. But who knows? What it does is turbo. Like a lot of controllers, a lot of third-party controllers specifically, the Competition Pro is laden with special features, and they're pretty common ones. You have the start and select, those are just buttons, so they're not really special features. The slow, which, as I've explained a million times before, pauses the game rapidly to simulate slow motion, and it's kind of archaic by today's standards, but I guess back in the NES times it worked pretty well. And then we have auto fire for the A and B button. There are three different options. You could put it on fire, which I guess they mean turbo fire. They don't actually explain, but fire as an option, when you press the button, for example B in this case, it will rapidly fire B. And the little lights here will flash to let you know that the turbo is working. You can also select it for auto, which means it will automatically fire, or normal, which just means it plays normally. And they have the same three options for the A button. Now, something I noticed with this controller specifically is that you really have to press down on the buttons to get them to work. It's not game breaking, you can adjust to it to a degree, and maybe it might just be the connectors on this specific controller, because after all, these are 20, 30-year-old controllers, but it is something that I noticed with this one, and it might be a problem with other controllers that come from this cloth. But however, they do have a nice click right here, you can tell. And to slip into Sebastian there for a second. And then we have the D-pad. The D-pad is a D-pad. It's nothing too special, but what's interesting about this D-pad that you won't notice right away. Actually, you will notice it right away, but you won't notice when looking at it. This D-pad is actually notably bigger than an NES D-pad or most Nintendo D-pads. So it takes a very insignificant bit more to go from, for example, to rapidly change to the left, and you've got a little bit more real estate to cover with your thumb. And it doesn't sound like it would make a big difference, but it does initially. If you go from a regular NES controller to this one, you will notice that there's something off, and you won't be able to put your well, I guess you will be able to put your finger on it, but usually the thing that's off is the fact that the D-pad is just a little bit bigger, and it's just a little different. Now, what's cool about this controller, but a little bit unnecessary, it's got these little things here, and what they do, from what I can tell, is they make it so your fingers fit really well up here. It fits really good, and that's nice and all, and it works better in my opinion for a Genesis controller. It feels like there should be trigger buttons up here. Like, this controller makes you feel like there should be shoulder buttons. In fact, I think a Competition Pro for the Super Nintendo might work even better, because this does feel natural to hold a controller this way because of the little ridges. But there's no shoulder buttons, so it's just sort of a different kind of controller. So that's something to note, if nothing else. And we can turn it around and see the back. There's nothing really, just the model number, 8003. And you can say Hap Controls Incorporated, made in Taiwan, so mark of quality there. I joke, honestly, most controllers are made in China or Taiwan, besides the official ones, so I can't really fault them for just the location it came from. But there it is, the Competition-Pro. Now, it does everything pretty okay. Well, one thing that I didn't mention before, however, is that the turbo is amazing. The turbo on this controller is probably the best turbo that I've experienced on the NES, period. It just works really, really well. And for games like Blaster Master or Mega Man, where you have to constantly be firing, this controller is just amazing. Now, assuming that the slightly larger D-pad doesn't bother you, and that the the pressure sensitivity with the buttons is just a problem with this specific model, I'd say this is a great controller. It feels comfortable, the auto fire is amazing, and everything else is just a generally good design. So, you know what? I'd say take a risk. It's not an expensive controller. I picked this one up for $4 or $5, something in that area. So take a chance with it and see how you like it. And as always, later days.